All right, NFL fans, welcome back to another episode of For Your Viewing Pleasure. I'm Jeff Hartman, as always, joined by Wesley Coleman. Wesley, what's going on, man?
Doing good, man. I think maybe a few surprises this last week. Maybe some games that were better than we necessarily thought as well. And then a few things kind of played out as we're expecting. But I know you're happy, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes. They can
y'all are
kick.
y'all
They
are,
can kick all the field goals and beat the
did
Ravens, and I'm
y'all
fine with that.
did y'all set a Guinness World Book of World Records record for most field goals in a game or least touchdowns in a game? Well, I don't remember. It was something.
Hey,
I know that y'all
it
did
is the
good.
second. It's the second game this season that they didn't score a touchdown in one. I don't know if is that like impressive, because everyone always says that's an ugly win. Hey, I always say ugly wins are typically accompanied by beautiful defensive performances. So put it that way.
Well, congratulations either way.
Hey, you all had a big win. You guys beat the Browns.
We're back. We're back in the race apparently to some people for the NFC South title, but I'm not one of those people. So,
Fair enough.
but the
Let's
Saints have won 2 in a row. If they win next week, that's called a winning streak.
Great plug. And let's start. This show is a preview show as we get you ready for week 12. Let's talk about the primetime games. Here's the slate. Thursday night, Steelers at Browns. Interesting. Let's go to Sunday night football. Eagles at Rams. That actually is intriguing to me. And then Monday night is really intriguing for me. I think the Baltimore Ravens going to LA to play the Chargers in the Harbaugh Bowl. What do you think about this slate of primetime games?
I mean, it's they all at least feature a team in first place or fighting for first place, or so there's at least that. I'm not sure if the matchups are necessarily all the way intriguing. I get where you're coming from on the Ravens and Chargers. The Chargers have been a boring team now until this last week. They decided to score some points.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to see what can be done here. The Ravens defense hasn't been the Ravens defense of old. I mean, except for stopping the Steelers from scoring touchdowns. So can the Chargers kind of keep it up? They beat the Bengals last week. If they can knock off the Ravens, the Chargers start getting some serious contention, not just, defense and what are they doing with Justin Herbert.
Well, and I think the Eagles-Rams Sunday night is intriguing as well. I mean,
that's
the
actually
Rams
the game that I like the most out of those.
Do you want to talk? Is that a must-watch for you?
Man, I've been, I guess, incorrectly plugging the Rams all year. But
you have been plugging them a lot. I wouldn't say it's incorrect, though.
I mean, but this past week, they've shown what I've been talking about, that, I mean, if Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are healthy and Matthew Stafford is healthy, which the three of them together are not healthy very often.
Correct.
That's a crazy offense that can put up some yards and put up some points. And then, I mean, Kyren Williams has been a touchdown machine since he entered the league. So, I mean, I think they're a team that you don't want to play. Having said that, I mean, the Eagles are one of the hottest teams in football right now.
Yep.
I mean,
they are. Man, do you watch Thursday night last week? That first half was atrocious. And that happens a lot on Thursday night football. I totally understand that. But there's something about this Eagle team, and maybe you disagree, but they just seem off. Like, I don't know. Like, it's Saquon Barkley. Like, they've basically hitched their wagon and said, hey, big fella, we're riding this until the wheels fall off. And like I said on another show, the NFL Whip Around with Coach Kevin Smith, historically, the wheels do fall off on this guy. So it's just interesting. I don't know. What's your take on Philly?
I mean, I'm going to still ride with a little bit of – so last year – I plugged every week that even though I think they were 9-1 or 10-1 or something like that, that they were the worst 9-1 team in the history of football, and that they didn't deserve to be a first place team, because watching them play, they won 4 or 5 games last year in that first 10 where they were not the best team on the field, but I get it. They got points at the end, and there's something to be said about that. But they didn't look like they were doing it out of, hustle and try and game planning. They just happened to be at the end having more points than the other team. Yeah. And I get it. Now, at some point, I'm like, man, maybe I'm just wrong. And and then they go to the playoffs and they just were, they're terrible.
Yeah.
I think Nick Sirianni is the worst coach in football. I think he replaced Brandon State. Well, I mean, Dennis Allen has been fired, so we can say that now.
So all the coaches that are no longer
I didn't say that all year he has been the worst coach in football. But right now, I think he's my Brandon Staley that's holding a team back. And now I think that Jalen Hurts is way more Justin Fields than he is Lamar Jackson. Now, again, I'm not saying he's as bad as. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not really trying to kick all the Steelers fans.
Here we go again.
It just worked out that way. I didn't mean to actually do that again. Jalen Hurts has done some dumb things, and when half of your touchdowns are tush push touchdowns, I'm not sure how much credit you get for that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not convinced on the Eagles. I think they're going to lose close games because of coaching and because of some Jalen Hurts crazy passes. But I love Saquon Barkley and watching him play. I mean, that's a game that I will watch because I like Saquon Barkley and I like what I like Matthew Stafford and what the Rams are doing.
All right. So is there any other must-watch game for you that you're looking at on the schedule saying, like, this is one I definitely think is going to be a good one?
I mean, there's two that I mean, I'll first of all throw Arizona and Seattle in there.
Man, who would have thought that? Like, I was going to say the same game. Who would have thought that?
I mean, Arizona's in first place ahead of the 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. They're going to Seattle. Arizona and Seattle play each other twice in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Like, they're going to figure out, at least between those two, what's going on, or they're going to split it 1-1. Who knows? Seattle's lost 4 of their last 5 games at home. Or 4 in a row at home, I think is what it is. I could have said that. I think they've lost 4 in a row at home. But Arizona just beat San Francisco, or Seattle just beat San Francisco. Arizona's coming off a bye week. I mean, that's a huge game right there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I was going to say, and this might be the other game that you're thinking of, 49ers Packers.
Yeah.
And it sucks that they're both at the 4:25 time slot on Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's in Green Bay, so it's in Lambeau. This is a game the 49ers can't lose. And they're 5-5. And you're looking at the Cardinals and Seahawks that we just talked about. Cardinals are 6-4. Seahawks are 5-5. The Niners have to have that game. And Green Bay's got to have the game if they have any prayer of an NFC North title and sticking with the Detroit Lions, who seem like world beaters right now. What's your take on this game?
I mean, there's a real chance that neither one of them's good.
Yeah.
I mean, like honestly, and I mean, you know, I've not lied about that. I'm not the biggest Jordan Love supporter, and that contract I think was unearned. But who they should have lost to the Bears this last week, and they've had a couple of other close games. I'm not sold on them. But I'm also the 49ers haven't looked right. Now, do the 49ers was Christian McCaffrey was back 2 weeks ago a little bit, and then he's back this week and kind of gets 19, 20 touches. Are they ramping him back up? Is this going to be the Christian McCaffrey game? I know Brock Purdy didn't look good last week. So I don't know. I mean, I think that the loser of this game is marked as a pretender. You know, in the Packers, they win this, they're 8-3, and that's going to look like a great record and all, but I'm not sure if anybody's too scared of them going on the road in the playoffs.
I know you kind of poo-pooed this game, but I think Ravens-Chargers is going to be a fun one. I think we're going to learn something about one of these teams. Maybe the Ravens are so hit or miss that they have so much potential, but yet they struggle sometimes. Maybe the Chargers are just beating bad teams, and they're not that good. I don't know. I think this is going to be, you have a 7-4 Ravens team, 7-3 Chargers. The Ravens would go into their bye week after this. And man, you can't lose 2 in a row going into your bye week. That would be tough. And then depending on how the Steelers do against Cleveland, then you're looking at, if they lose that game and they have 5 losses and Pittsburgh wins and they only have 2, shoot, that's a tough hill to climb in the AFC North. So I think there's a lot on the line in that Monday night game. So I'm going to put it in that category. All right. What about fantasy lineups? Any games, even if it's one-sided, any games you're looking at like, hey, you might want to think about starting these guys?
I mean, we did talk a lot about the Eagles and the Rams, but there's just tons of fantasy guys that need to be playing in your lineup on both of those teams. Regardless of if he's the best quarterback or not, Jalen Hurts does get rushing touchdowns. He does get some rushing yards. If I'm not sure what's going on with AJ Brown and like if he's truly recovered and healthy or what's going on there. But you can't not start him or Devontae Smith. There's quite a few guys on both teams that you need to have in your lineup.
If you have Detroit Lions going up against the Colts, it's in Indianapolis, but that very well could be a team that you want to start. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs if you have him in your lineup.
Well, I mean, him and David Montgomery, didn't they each have 2 touchdowns last week? Like they're just if they only had one of those guys, they'd be the highest scoring running back in the entire game.
Well, the tough part about Detroit, from a fantasy perspective, is that you can never know who's going to actually go off. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs will go off, Montgomery will go off the next game, but that's a game. And I'll tell you what, and I'll go ahead and say it before you say it. I will say if you have some Commanders on your roster, I would think about having them start against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are bad, and Jaden Daniels has had a little bit of an extended break. I expect him to be better. They're at home hosting the Cowboys. I don't know. Do you like that, or you think Jaden Daniels is more banged up than people are letting on?
I think he's more banged up than people are letting on, but it's not going to matter against that sad Cowboys team.
Yeah.
I just want to. You were talking about the Detroit versus the Colts game.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson has announced this. He's going to be the starter now again. So
he's not tapping out.
he just took a couple weeks to work on his cardio. He's been sleeping in the hyperbolic chamber. He actually just went and stayed in Denver for a couple of weeks. He's some altitude training and all.
Yeah.
He's back. He's gonna take on the number 1 team in the NFL. And that's so you do have Anthony Richardson to put back in your lineup if you didn't drop him.
Yeah, if you did that. All right, what about a sneaky good game? I'm looking at this slate of games, man, and it's not pretty. But if there's a game that you're like, okay, this might turn out to be a pretty good football game. Are there any that are popping off the screen?
Yeah, I'm not going to hate on the Minnesota-Chicago game. Listen, I know the Bears are losing it, but the Bears are a missed field goal away from beating the Packers, and they are a crazy play away from beating the Commanders. You're talking about a very different life for the Bears if they win those 2 games.
Absolutely.
With everything that's going on this year. So I'm not going to I think that's an interesting game. And now I don't know the Vikings. I mean, they're 8-2, man. And Sam Darnold's playing well. And I still think, without a doubt, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver on the planet that I think that we've had in a long time. So I think there's something there between those 2 teams. And this is a whole different conversation with the Bears if they're 6-4 versus 4-6, and they are literally 2 weird plays away from being at least 6-4.
That was the game I was going to lean on because I'm looking at division games because sometimes a sneaky good game will come from division rivalries, right? Cowboys, Commanders. Nope. I just don't see it. Patriots, Dolphins. Nope. I just don't see it. Titans, Texans. No. I just don't. Broncos, Raiders. I know what the schedule makers were doing in this week. The games just aren't playing out the way they thought they would in terms of having it be competitive. I have no other sneaky good matchups here, Wesley. If you have another one, man, let me have it because I am looking at this slate of games completely dumbfounded with some of these. Like dud of the week, I could go on for weeks, but I don't know.
No, I don't think there is. I'll just say you mentioned the Broncos are fixing to probably whip the Raiders. You've got Bo Nix is figuring out playing quarterback. He just playing the Falcons, who listen, the Falcons they beat them 38-6, and the Falcons do have names on defense that should be able to play. They have huge names on offense, and they just lost to the at home to the Broncos 38-6. And now the Broncos are fixing to play the Raiders, Browns, and Colts the next 3 weeks. So they're going to go on going to extend that to a 4-game winning streak. Broncos are a weird field goal block away from beating the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. Yeah. This is a team that's there's something going on there that you're not going to want to play them in the playoffs in a 1-game winner go home scenario because they can ugly up a game real quick. And if Bo Nix keeps getting better, and he's going to have 3 games the next few weeks to build some confidence and get some yards. He threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns this last week. That's a scary team, and I think the Raiders they might put a lot of points on the Raiders.
Well, and let's also not forget the Broncos have a really good defense. So yes, Bo
Really
Nix
good.
is improving, and the offense is starting to show signs of promise. The defense has been good all year, and so like that's important to note.
You get down 10 to them. If he plays decent and you get down 10 to them, you're in trouble.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go to you. Let's go to you can only watch one. So if you had to pick one game on the schedule that you're like, okay, this is the game I'm going to sit down, appointment viewing, which game is it for you?
Well, I mean, first of all, if the Commanders are going to hang 50 on the Cowboys, I'd really like to watch every second of that. That's not my one, but that's I'm intrigued by Arizona, Seattle. And maybe some of it is, so I've watched probably more Arizona and Seattle plays and quarters this year than I think a lot of people have. I've kind of been, I've talked about for a few weeks in a row. I think Seattle's has thrown the ball too much. This last week, they dialed it back a little bit and did well. I think they need to cap Geno Smith at 32 to 35 passes, and they can be smart there. But Arizona's got a better defense than I think we think about. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has gotten a lot of hype, even though he's been okay. Trey McBride has been great. I just think that, and James Conner has been amazing for them as their starting running back. I think there's something there. And the reason I think that everybody's going to be sleeping on those two teams, and I think people they're going to get to the playoffs and be like, oh, I haven't watched a single bit of Arizona or Seattle football weekend. Oh, I guess I'll see them in the playoffs. And they're going to be better than you think. So I like to watch them. I want to see them face up against each other. They're going to face again in 2 weeks and see who learns from that. I think that's going to be interesting to see what they do the second time they face each other. And then they also might face each other again in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a real possibility. That's a good one to choose. I'm going to go with Ravens Chargers. I want to see I want to see something on the line. 2 7-win teams. There is a lot on the line for both of these teams. I like to see that. I could have gone Eagles Rams, but 5-5 LA, I'll still watch, but if I could only watch one and it's not my homer pick on Thursday night, then it would probably be the Monday nighter for sure. Now, there's a lot of options here for dud of the week. I mean, we could go in a million different directions. Which one is it for you?
I mean, there are a bunch of different directions. I mean, I'm honestly like the game that I'm the least interested in watching might be Pittsburgh versus Cleveland, because Cleveland's terrible, and I think that's going to be just an utter whipping. It's the lowest. And here's again, I've always factored this in. To me, dud of the week also factors into who's got the lowest price ticket of the week.
Okay,
they got $39 tickets in Cleveland for Pittsburgh to visit, and this isn't. I'm not trying to. I think Pittsburgh is going to beat them very badly. And then there's a couple other games here I think will run like that. But it's also Thursday night, so it could be even worse. The Browns looking worse than they even do look. And so I think it's going to be a bit of a non-competitive, but also you just never know with Thursday night games.
Yeah. I hope.
What about you? I know you're going to be watching that one, enjoying the Steelers pull away from the Ravens by another half a game, hoping that the Ravens lose to where it can be a full game. But what's the game that I couldn't make you watch?
I mean, the Tommy DeVito season debut would be really bad. I get Tampa Bay, New York, like that, just in New York. That's just awful. Chiefs.
It's possible Mike Evans is back this week.
All right, fair enough. Chiefs, Panthers. Like, oh gosh, these games are just puke. It's a toss up between those two for me. It's got to be between Chiefs, Panthers, but there's probably just going to be the total is 42.5. They must think that the Chiefs are going to really run it up in this game. Buccaneers is 41.5. I'm surprised they're having them score that many points, but nonetheless, I'm going to go with Buccaneers Giants as my dud of the week.
Yeah, I mean the Titans Texans isn't a great one. This is a week where there's some games that don't make a lot of sense. And it's in Houston. Some of these other bad games, the team that I expect to be terrible, it's their home game. So maybe that makes it a little more competitive. But this one's Tennessee going to Houston. I wonder if they're both going to wear I wonder if the Titans will wear like the Oilers throwback jersey for that one. That would be kind of cool in Houston.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these uniform combos this year have been putrid.
Terrible.
Like some of these red, I don't like the red, like the Texans all red, like the battle red, whatever they call it. Nah, it looks awful. Looks awful. Give me classic looking uniforms. That's all I want. Get a good combo and stick with it. But I digress. All right, man. Hey, any final thoughts on the upcoming week?
No, I mean, I think there's still some surprising teams in first or second place or with kind of very lopsided winning records. And so it's kind of been a weird season where the haves and have-nots. There's some really bad teams, and then it's kind of there's not a lot like of last year. I felt like there was a ton of in the middle. Yeah. This year it feels like there's good teams and bad teams, and like the in the middle is kind of bad teams.
So. Yeah, and I always said after Thanksgiving is when you should really start to look at the playoff picture. We're going to start doing that on this podcast. So not next week, but the week after is when we're really going to start diving into, okay, where are we talking about AFC, NFC, who's in, who's out, who's on the bubble, who's still in the mix. And so we are going to dive into that for those that listen to the podcast every week. But Wesley, why don't you tell us where they can find your Saints coverage and as well as on social media?
Yep, we follow we have the Saints. The Saints are on a bye week this week, but we will still be talking about them.
Can't lose.
Yep. It's still not the winning streak, but it's a non-losing streak. It continues. So we're on the Dome Patrol podcast at Dome Patrol PCast on X, or you can find me at Wesley13. I'll talk to you about any of the teams in the NFL or the Dallas Mavericks.
He'll just crap on the Steelers most of the time. But anyways, you can find me on the Steel Network. And obviously, wherever you get your podcast, just search Steelers. You'll find us. Find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN _PIT. Wesley, man, it's been another fun one. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.